straight off the bat, I want you to get ready for this 1 minute that I grabbed of a conversation between myself and Dan Franco, my guest. He's talking about what happens when we don't allow our kids to feel their emotions and express their emotions.
And if they're not able to do it, if they're not able to learn, when do they learn it, Steph? Like when they're older, when it's like, I guess it's becoming more normalized now, but it's like like I said, they do it in the workplace or they do it at home. And going back to your story that you shared, the worst way to show it, and we don't understand this fully, but the worst way to show it or the way it can come out is men losing their lives.
Yeah.
Women losing their lives. Domestic violence. Like these are the worst ways they can come out. And you can't tell me it's not because, like, you know, if we let our kids express all of that stuff when they're kids and say it's okay and teach them how to harness it, how to direct it, how to deal with it. And I would love a better word than just to deal with it, because it's more than dealing with it, but just to know what to do with it when it comes up, to be resilient, because it is the bounce back.
Wow. Okay. So that's like a bit of a snippet. That's like a soundbite of what's to come. Such a great conversation. By the way, this is part 2. So if you haven't listened to part 1 of our conversation, Daniel Franco and myself, please go back to just the previous episode. It came out last week. Incredible. We've had, both Dan and I have had amazing messages from parents who have basically said, holy moly, that landed with me. And thank you for having this conversation. And so anyway, this is the second half. This is continuing. We did weave and our conversation took turns, and I actually think it's kind of even better than last week, even better than part 1. So, and we just had to keep talking. So, because there was just too much for us to cover. Okay. Before we jump into part 2, I want to acknowledge the Darug Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work, and record this podcast. I want to pay my respects to all First Nations people, elders, and ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Also, I just want to quickly let you guys know, regardless of if you're a mum or a dad listening to this episode now, Dan mentions something called the Hibernation Challenge, which he is starting. Actually, he started it just on a Saturday, so it's the 1st of June. I'm going to put some information about this in the show notes, but also right at the end of the episode. So if you are curious about it and you want to learn more, or if you want to pass some information on to your husband, partner, brother, I don't know, friend, then please stick around. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about that incredible challenge that is happening now. Okay, without further ado, let's jump in. This is a big one. Okay, so let's keep going with, we kind of left off on I love that you're kind of, as you said, going hard on men to really be able to step up and change, kind of overcome some of those beliefs and some of those, that conditioning that they experienced as kids, which just is so, like, it's so prevalent across, I think, a lot of cultures. I want to pitch in, I mean, you did mention this, but I want to kind of contribute again that us mums or women, you know, we need to have so much, muster as much compassion and empathy and patience for your partner as you can, because I'm going to quote like Ross Greene here. He talks about kids do well if they can, like they're doing the best that they can with the brain that they have, is kind of what I add on to that. Same goes for us adults, men and women, like everyone, we're all doing genuinely because we care about our kids and the way that they turn out, basically. Like we're all doing the best that we can with the conditioning, let's just call it, with the conditioning, the experiences that we had. And so the beliefs that we have, like my husband and me, we're on the same page in terms of we want our kids to be emotionally intelligent. We want them to be kind. We want them to be confident and resilient. We don't want them to be quitters and giver-uppers, or, you know, we have the same values. And so I would argue that most people listening, like your partner has the same kind of values as you. But of course, because we were raised in different households, we're going different ways about it based on what we think is the best method. Does that make sense? Like when let's talk a bit about maybe
you said a word that's very powerful. Values.
Oh. I was like, what did I say?
No, values. So if you like, as a husband and wife, mum and dad, if you when that's what I mean. When people ask me the question, how to get my husband on the same page, it's like, well, what page are you on? Like, do you have the same values? If you value your child to be strong, resilient, like I could list like 10 to 15 things about most of them, I bet most conscious parents, most emotionally intelligent parents would have very similar 15 on that list. If you're 15 or even 5, let's just start with 5. If your 5 are very different to your husband's 5, then you're probably on the wrong page. You're probably reading the wrong book. You're probably doing. I'd question.
Yeah.
How are we as a couple? How did we kind of get together? Because.
I'm guessing. Let's go through that really quickly. I would say, just off the top of my head, some of them. Some of the values that probably both parents, generally speaking, have for their kids is that they want them to obviously be kind to other people. Because no one, like, think about it, even a 2-year-old, if they're not going to share, we teach them, we're like, hey, you need to share, I think honesty as well, because people have such problems, and I get it. I'm not saying it's great, but with lying. So we want our kids to be honest. We want them to be successful and hardworking and not give up, that kind of concept, those values. We want them to be able to, of course, handle their emotions maturely or productively or, in a beneficial way. No one really wants them to, splash their anger out all over the place or cry for hours on end. Like, it's not productive or helpful. Maybe there's some slight differences there with some parents being happy for or encouraging their kids to suppress or squash or put that away because there are other bigger things. So I get that there's a bit of a difference there. Being helpful, having like this teamwork mentality. We help each other. I reckon, is there anything you would add to that?
The word resilient comes up, but you've probably touched on it
just as you said that, I was like, oh, I forgot resilient. Oh, whoops.
Resilient but strong, but that touch, you touched on it, and I think like you said it before, like how we get to that point, like, and this is what I love about parenting, but I also find it like one of the most challenging things about parenting as well is that we don't know. We have an idea of how to raise strong, resilient, like all these, like, let's just say good kind of values. We have an idea, but we don't really know. A lot of it's a gamble. So, but what we do know is that, certain things obviously don't help. So to get to point X, if I go around the really, really long way, which can be very frustrating, but if I still end up at point X and meet you at point X, we've still got to point X. We've still got to those values. We've still raised kids with those values and instilled those values in our children. How we got there, it's very, the minutiae in it, the difficulty in it, like as parents, there's going to be like, and I want to quote Dr. John and Julie Gottman here. Like they had an episode recently, or towards the start of the year, with Diary of a CEO Stephen Bartlett. And like the catch line in that, like, so listen to the statistics, right? So 80% of the problems in a marriage, the women bring up. So 80% brought up by the wife, the mum, the women. 69% of the problems are not solvable. So 69% of all of those problems are not solvable. So it's an uphill battle. So if we're relying on success being that we're going to solve all these problems and be on the same page, then our measure for success, that the odds are against us.
Yeah.
So it's like how we get to these values It doesn't mean we can't communicate about it. It doesn't mean we can't then, okay, yeah, I can, I guess, what's the word that it wants to come to mind here? I can't think of it. It starts with the C.
The C word.
The C word, not the bad C word. The good. Sometimes you might want to call your husband the bad C word, but
We could have it.
compromise. Compromise. The good C word is compromise.
I was like, have a good think, and I'll edit that bit out, but I'm not going to edit that bit
No,
out.
you don't. You don't need to. Compromise is the like we compromise. What we don't do. So if we value that, we don't compromise who we are, and we don't compromise our values. What we do compromise is how we can get to that. So as a mum, if you don't like your husband yelling or the father yelling, have a conversation. The other great C word, communication. Communication. Some of it, like, it's the most like, and this is the hard thing about it. Again, conditioning, another great C word there. Conditioning. It's like we've been conditioned to like communicate really, really terribly.
Yeah.
Like to communicate our thoughts, our feelings, to communicate what we actually want. Typically, we are really bad at it. And it wasn't until like, and I've told this kind of story before on I think a masterclass or something we did. Like me and Chrissy have been in couples counselling for, let's say, since 2019. We've been on and off the last few years, but for a good couple of years we were very it was kind of every 2 weeks couples counselling. What I learned very quickly in couples counselling was the power of communication. And this is my story and my experience. Like I was so scared to actually communicate what I wanted to Chrissy because I thought she would leave me. Like it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds ridiculous. Like we were married for 2015, so 4 years at the time. Well, it was going on 5 years. I was so scared to actually tell, and we'd been together for 13 years. I was so scared to tell her what I actually wanted, some things that I actually thought, because I was so worried that she was going to leave me. Like, how ridiculous is it to think that way? But that was like a genuine fear of mine. When I learned how to communicate, when I learned how to share, in a healthy way, because that's the other thing. Don't try and communicate when stress levels are through the roof. Wasted. You're going to waste all your good communication. To start with, if you're stressed, you're not going to communicate well at all anyway. And that's like part of the biggest problem as probably, mums and dads, is our stress levels are through the roof. So we try to do a lot of these things. Like we try to like just push through it and like white knuckle through it. But like communication is the greatest tool. So if you are frustrated, this is the kind of point I'm trying to make. If you're frustrated with your husband, talk to your husband about being frustrated. Like if you haven't, as the first port of call, if you haven't gone to your husband and had that conversation, don't go out and seek anybody else. Because going back to what I said on, it would be the last episode, it's going to, like, I can't help your husband if he's not coming to me directly. I can't help you if you can't have a conversation with your husband. And it's the same thing with children. I can't, and you get this, you would deal with the parents. The reason you deal with the parents is because, sure, yeah, you could do lots for the kids, but it's the parents that and not need the fixing. No one's broken. Nobody needs to be fixed, but it's only the parents that can make the change. Only you can make the change for you. You can't make the change for your husband. You can't make the change for your wife, your partner, your kids. You can't make any of those changes. It comes back to you, and that's the hard reality of it sometimes, that we have to, as self-aware as we think we are, as emotional intelligent as we think we are, when we stand in front of that mirror and look ourselves in the eye and take honest stock of what's going on, it's like, well, what's my involvement in all of this? And I'm not saying, again, I'm not trying to be harsh to anyone, and I know there's a lot of I know there's a lot of relationships that involve narcissism, domestic violence, a lot of terrible relationships. I'm not talking about those. Like that's not my wheelhouse of expertise. I'm talking about the relationship where it's just communication, where it's just like, hey, he just frustrates the hell out of me and I want him to be on the same page. And it's like, well, have you talked to him? No, I haven't. It's like, well, talk to him. Talk to him. Like that's communication. It's like that's you need to know. Like I remember Chrissy and I driving home, and we were driving home from a friend's house a few years ago, and I was like, man, relationships are really hard work. And she's like, no, they're not hard work. They just take effort. And it's like that reframing of the word like hard work and effort. It's like hard work. It's like in my head, it's like, oh, I have to do this. Or, I'm forced to do this. And, and it's like it has that perceived kind of negative connotation to it where it's like effort. It's like you put effort into something that's worth it. And relationships take effort. Communication takes effort. Getting on the same page with your husband or your wife, it takes effort. And it takes understanding, compassion, patience, like all of these things.
And I think the power of communication and the kind of way that you're calling out, I want to put that in a nicer way, but you're like calling us out to say, hey, you've got to communicate better. You've got to work on your communication. That goes for everyone. I want to take out the like men versus women in that, because that goes for men, that goes for women, that goes for anyone in a relationship. We need to be working on our communication. I need to work on it too. And as you know, and some of the people listening know, I was a speech pathologist for 10 years. So that was my wheelhouse, language and communication. And I was great at it with kids because I was a pediatric speech pathologist, and I sucked at it with my husband. And he was beautiful and loving in that he never really pointed that out. But he would kind of share and mention and, say it in a nice way. But he was like, you need to talk to me. You need to tell me what's going on. You need to tell me what you want. You need to tell me if you're not happy. And I was like, oh, I was like, don't you know? Like, aren't you feeling it? Aren't you reading my mind? So I think that goes for everyone. I just want to, yes, we're talking about like men, women, husbands, wives, but really, I think he's actually calling me right now. I can see, look, he's ringing. So he must know he's trying to communicate. And I'm like, decline. Sorry, babe. But it's funny. I just think, I think that's really, really powerful. The more that we communicate, me and my husband, the more that we had, oh my gosh, we had an amazing conversation yesterday about one of our kids and friendships, a friendship issue that's going on with one of our kids. And we don't have 2-hour-long D&Ms all the time. D&Ms? Yeah, D&Ms all the time. But we just had a really good conversation that was probably 20 minutes, and it was about, one of our kids. And I actually said to him as I got up and left, I was like, that was really good. Like that felt really good hashing that out. And oh my gosh, we are so on the same page, because I was expecting him to, how bad is this, to be like, oh, don't worry, their kids, I'll sort it out. But he was like, you know what, I think we really need to be on top of this and, keep an eye. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, communication for us has, I want to say just skyrocketed, and we're still human, but really skyrocketed our connection and our ability to be pretty much on the same page, despite having been raised in very different households with very different cultures. Like even our culture, my family's English, his is Portuguese, so it's, very different. Anyway, I feel like I'm talking too much. I want to ask you, I'm going to jump around to this kind of question. It's a bit of a question that we kind of hear a lot, I think, you and I. I'm just going to kind of read it right off my screen. My husband thinks gentle parenting is a joke, and he's worried that we're not going to raise strong and resilient kids. Is he right or is he wrong? I want your opinion on that.
He's right. He's right. Weak, soft children, if you're gentle. Look, we all know, and again, you said it beautifully before. It's like we have this kind of like even asking that question, and these are honest questions that you're asking because you've got them and I've got them. I've got questions like this, and straight away I think it's already an us versus them mentality. It's already you against him by asking a question like that. Like, how can we, like, straight away, like in my head, it's like, how can we frame that question where we take away the divide? How can I get curious with that question and go, okay, my husband, this is what my husband believes about gentle parenting. I'm not sure why he believes that way. Like, I might have a conversation with my husband about that. Okay, I have had a conversation. Okay, this is why my husband believes this about gentle parenting. I think there's a I think there's a lot of misinformation, and the gentle parenting, and I don't mean to poke kind of a stick at gentle parenting kind of circles and stuff like that. Not doing ourselves any favors with the gentle parenting and things like that. Like, permissive parenting is not gentle parenting. I think we seem to kind of get lumped in. This is why I love what you talk about as emotional intelligent parenting. It's like we seem to get lumped in with, like, we let our child do anything. We don't discipline our children. We raise soft kids because we don't raise our voice at our kids. We don't smack our kids. We just let our kids be kids, and that's it. And we know that in this space. This is why I'm going to say it really specifically. In the space, we know that. Outside of the space, so the dads, the mums, the parents that are outside of that space.
And maybe the grandparents, I'm just going to add in there, just because they're from a different era. Continue.
Yep. They don't know any different because they're not in the space. So they, outside looking in, it might look that way. But we know it's not that way. We know there's a lot more that we're actually cultivating in our children. We know the science that will back up what we're doing and why we're doing it. We know, the stories that we've had shared with us as to why we will still be able to raise strong and resilient kids by gentle parenting, conscious parenting, emotionally intelligent parenting. Like, we know that. So no, we're not going to raise weak kids by gentle parenting our kids. No, like, we're actually probably going to, we are better off. Like, I guess for me, like, and I fell into kind of this thing. Like, I didn't know what gentle parenting was or emotional intelligent parenting was. I just knew that, like, I don't want to smack my child. It doesn't feel right. Like, I never liked being smacked. Like, and it's not about, like, it was never oh, because my child's going to turn out a certain way. It was like, it just doesn't feel right. And I think we've just got to get back to, like, as parents, like, really tap into what feels right to us as parents. And I think you said it beautifully before. It's like, it's these, I think, again, going back to communication and, like, these grand gestures of, like, having to have long conversations with our significant other about parenting. Like, the reality is, like, in our household, we don't have time. Like, we struggle to have a conversation as husband and wife about anything with our two kids there, about anything. So we could start and then we get interrupted, which is okay, but it's like, it's really hard to stay on topic. So a lot of kind of conversations Chrissy and I have is over text, or late at night just before bed, or in the morning when kind of we're on the deck and we've got 5 minutes. It's like, take that time and like have just kind of touch points about how we're thinking about parents. So kind of going back to your question, like, we know the answer to it. We're not going to raise weak kids through gentle parenting. Like, there's a big difference between, and both you and I have talked about this at length as well, between discipline and punishment. And I think that's everyone gets lost on well, you need to punish your child to be able to raise strong, resilient kids. All punishing will do to your child is make them compliant. You'll grow up with compliant kids, and we'll just go through this cycle again, this cycle of, kids that don't express emotions, kids that struggle to express emotions, and we'll grow into parents that struggle to express emotions, struggle to feel emotions. Then we'll raise kids that will just continue to go through this cycle because we think that that's the right way of parenting, or that's the right way it'll turn out, because I will have to be hard on them for them to be, the world's tough. We've got to prepare them. So,
you know what? Can I jump in with a memory that I've just had as you were talking? It actually relates back to when we were talking about, it's on the same topic, permissive versus gentle parenting. So when we think about it, yes, of course, we want our kids to be resilient and strong, right? And to be able to handle adversity. That usually goes for, most parents, whether they're understanding of this way of parenting or not. And the thing I think is like a bit of a missing link is that we don't, maybe the parents who are not familiar with what conscious or gentle or emotionally intelligent parenting is that they don't realize that resilience really is the ability to, hate the term, but kind of the bounce back, be able to move through tough adversity, tough moments and things like that, and challenging times, which what is underlying those tough moments and tough times, when you have a disappointment or on a test or an exam, or you fail something, or you have a breakup, like what we don't understand is there are emotions under that, like the disappointment, like the grief, the sadness, or the anger, or whatever it is, the hopelessness, like, hello, all those emotions. If we don't teach our kids how to handle those, then they're not going to be resilient. And so we're not going to raise resilient humans or adults, especially if we're teaching them actually to shove that down and to soldier on and to toughen up and to, suck it up and all those things. So I think there's like a bit of a confusion there, that we don't realize what actually resilient means, and that a big part of being resilient, maybe the whole thing, I don't know, is being emotionally intelligent, being able to handle those tough, uncomfortable emotions and yet process them and move through them to the other side. Anyway, my memory, let me get to that, is that I had a call with a mum a couple of years ago now. Lovely mum, struggling with one out of several of her kids and their behavior. And she said, but my husband is not on board, thinks this is a waste of time, would not be coming to the calls. And I don't know what to do. Would you be able to talk to him and have a conversation? I said, okay, I don't usually do that, but yeah, sure. Like if he wants to have a chat, and I can sort of tell him a little bit about my work and the program. Anyway, so we got on the phone. Lovely guy, very, very, I want to say Aussie, as in like farmer Aussie, real kind of, strong accent. I think he was literally out on the farm when we did the call. And some of he was the complete other end of the spectrum in terms of the way he perceived the child's behavior and why the child was uncooperative and things like that, rude, disrespectful. And the memory that stuck out to me, and I haven't thought about this for a while, but I had, like, when I ended the call, I literally had to take a few minutes to regulate my own nervous system and calm myself down, because, and I'm thinking about it now and my heart's starting to race, because I remember him saying, emotional intelligence, never heard of it. I don't want to teach my kids to, talk about their emotions. I don't want them growing up to be sissies, basically. I'm out on the farm and we've got work to do, and the kids need to know that they've got to suck it up, whatever's going on. Like, we this is how we run our life and our livelihood. And then he said, I have bigger things to worry about, because just in the last, I think, I can't remember the exact numbers, just in the last couple of years, he said about 3 of his friends had essentially ended their life. He used different language, but had ended their life because of how tough it is, on the farm and doing work and things like that. Like, I don't think he made the connection between the way that a lot of us were raised, especially in that really old style mentality, shove it down, suck it up. We don't talk about that. Get out there, do your work kind of thing. Like, even now I'm thinking about it and I think, it didn't connect with him at all. And I could see that. And I can't save everyone kind of thing. And I just left that call feeling really, really just kind of my own grief for what's happening in some families.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said it in, like, I think the most profound thing in that story for me was that the way he is raising his kids or seeing his kids when they do a certain thing is very different to his wife because of his experience. So, rightly or wrongly, like, he's obviously scared. That's what I hear in that. He's scared. He doesn't want to lose kids, his kids, to suicide because they've talked about their feelings, or they're not tough, they're not, made out to do the work on the farm. Like, he's speaking from and this is the danger of kind of raising kids that way, is we're trying to raise them either through fear, in terms of we're going to make them fear us because that's what yelling does to kids, or from fear, is in terms of, like, I'm so scared they're going to turn out that way, I'm going to parent the complete opposite way, or parent like this, like a real, like, I don't want soft kids, so I'm going to be really, like, hard. And there's just fear in all of that. And, like, what we've got to do, and this is, again, it's so tough for men, for dads, is get back to, like, but what does, like, parenting from love look like? Like, what do, like, when you, like the scary thing is that, like, you don't want your kids to end up that way, but if you keep going down that path, they're going to end up that way because they'll suppress their emotion, and it will come out. Like, that's what everybody now, like, of my generation, of younger generations, are trying to, like, do this on the fly. They're trying to express their emotions in the workplace. And, like, rightly or wrongly, right, it's not appropriate to do it in the workplace. It's not appropriate to fly off the handle in the workplace. But if they don't get the opportunity to do that as children, if they don't get the opportunity to make mistakes as kids, to feel those emotions, to feel those feelings, to express them in whatever way, it's going to come out, and it will come out. It'll come out at the workplace, at the pub, it'll come out at home. Because, like, for me, from my experience, 9 times out of 10, when I've flown off the handle, it's landed on the people that I love the most. It's landed on Chrissy. It's landed on Betty and Axel, my two kids. It's landed on family, which is, like, you don't want it to land anywhere, but you certainly don't want it to land on the ones that you love the most. And it's like, so we need our kids to express their emotions. We need our kids to feel their emotions. Like, what is wrong, like, with our kids doing that when they're kids? Like, let them make all the mistakes they can when they're kids. Let them be so curious when they're kids, and do things, like, within reason, and this is like like, I think we can hold on, especially in the gentle and the conscious kind of parenting kind of sphere, we can hold on too tightly to our kids in that, because it's like, we don't want to put them, like, we want them to feel, but we don't want them to, like, be too upset or to express it in too much of a certain way, because we just want, like, gentle parenting doesn't mean gentle kids. We can have explosive kids, and we want explosive kids if that's how they feel that they need to express something. We want it. Like, I was like, Axel, I think he was 1.5 when he started to get really, really physical with me, like, was seeking that physical kind of rough play, and I had no idea what to do with him. Like, I was to the point where I was scared, and I had to, like, check myself. I was like, okay, where's this coming from, Daniel? And, like, the first thing kind of, like, I've never been in a fight, like, as a child, as an adult, in my teenage years, never been in a fight. I've never done any contact sport. So I played soccer growing up, never played football, never kind of done any wrestling, never done anything like that. When I was a kid, I don't remember wrestling with my dad. I don't remember having kind of wrestles. I remember, kind of getting in little wrestles with my brothers and things like that, but nothing from my father, nothing to kind of teach me that was, I guess, okay. So when Axel started doing it to me, I was like, whoa, this is full on. Like he's gonna hurt me, he's gonna hurt himself, he's gonna hurt the whole family.
Mm.
And like I could have easily just gone, nah, no, we don't wrestle, we don't do any of this stuff. But what I did, and again, this is where we have to have the curiosity, we have to have the awareness. Like I started like Googling rough playing kids, rough playing toddlers. And I started to find podcasts and I started to find kind of things that it was like pointed back to like, this is them just seeking. This is them seeking to map out the world, to map out, I remember hearing one podcast and the guest on the podcast said, it's no dissimilar to a child doing that than it is to a dog kind of mouthing and kind of biting to work out, okay, what's the appropriate level of bite here?
Yeah, they're learning.
They're learning, they're mapping out the environment, their surroundings. This is all stuff that they need to do. And if they're not able to do it, if they're not able to learn, when do they learn it, Steph? Like when they're older, when it's like, I guess it's becoming more normalized now, but they, like I said, they do it in the workplace or they do it at home. And going back to your story that you shared, the worst way to show it, and we don't understand this fully, but the worst way to show it or the way it can come out is men losing their lives.
Yeah.
Women losing their lives. Domestic violence. Like these are the worst ways they can come out. And you can't tell me it's not because like, if we let our kids express all of that stuff when they're kids and say it's okay and teach them how to harness it, how to direct it, how to deal with it. And I would love a better word than just to deal with it, because it's more than dealing with it, but just to know what to do with it when it comes up, to be resilient, because it is the bounce back. And you don't like that word, but I love that word because it is. It's like, this is how we bounce back from it. This is how quickly, and we can become more resilient. And the gap between the bounce back becomes less and less. So we don't have to sit in it and suffer. We suffer enough as human. We don't need to suffer more. It's such a beautiful thing to express emotion. And we need to normalize it. We need to normalize it for our kids. And that's what, when we go back to your question, gentle parenting, this is what it encompasses. This is what it's all about.
I'm just absorbing everything. We talk a lot offline, and like we can sometimes kind of roast each other and like poke fun because we do the same kind of thing, and we make jokes and stuff about parenting. But oh my gosh, like the absolute wisdom and like depth of what you've just shared. Like I think, what am I even doing? It's profound. And I think this conversation needs to be had. I think so many more conversations need to be had about this. And I think even if, like, again, we talked offline before this, most of my listeners and most of the people in my, followers, and they're mostly are mums, mostly are women. Not all, but most are. And I think even if you're a woman listening, then you are going to be taking away so much from this conversation, even if you think, I'm not there yet where I can talk with my partner or my husband. And like, if you're not there, that's okay. We're not here to give you like tips of this is how to get your husband on the same page kind of thing. Before we jump off.
Can I talk to that real quick though?
I'll
share, because I do want to give something tangible because I know this is going to hit more women's ears than it will hit men's ears. And I'm not asking you, like, by all means, share it with your husband if you feel called to. But the biggest thing for me, and this is to my relationship, like 2013. So I don't, what's that? 8 years ago? No, it's longer. 10, 11 years ago, something like that. Doesn't matter. No good at maths. Not here to be proved that I'm good at maths. Doesn't matter. 2013, I started a health and fitness journey. So I started to really get serious about my health and fitness. A lot of the pain points and frustrations in my relationship with Chrissy has been around health and fitness. Like where I've tried to go, this is what I've learned. Take this. This is what we're going to do now. And I've like tried to like fill our household with all of these wonderful things that I've learned. Just shove them all in, because
Mush it in there.
that's what's going to fix it, right? That's what's going to fix it. That's what's makes that'll make Chrissy on the same page. That'll make our kids on the same page. We're going to be a harmonious family. And it's, again, not until recently that I've learned that that doesn't work, Steph. It doesn't work. Nobody wants to be told what to do, especially, and I'm generalizing here, but especially men. Men hate it. Hate it. I hate it. I hate being told what to do. There's like some kind of like, no,
The visceral
I don't,
rejection.
like it. No, you're not telling me what to do. I know better. And it's like, so what I learned, this was like a year ago, a switch flicked for me. It's like, just be the person you want to be. If you're into health and fitness, then just be the person that you want to be. Model the behavior. And this is no different to parenting. And I know there's slight differences here. I know it's not the same, but just take a little bit of it and go, well, okay, this is how I'm going to start. If I really believe in emotionally intelligent parenting, then I'm going to start to be an emotionally intelligent a parent. So I'm going to flick that switch, and I'll start doing it. I'll start modeling the behaviors. I'll start, talking to the kids about X, Y, and Z, and sharing X, Y, and Z, and let them feel X, Y, and Z. And when my husband, pushes up against it, I'll show him emotional intelligence, and I'll be understanding. I'll be compassionate. I'll be patient, because that's the thing. Like, by then going to your husband and attacking your husband, you've lost your emotional intelligence. You've lost it all. And it's like, no, just go, okay, emotional intelligence back on. This is what I'm going to keep doing. And then the conversations will come, the communication will come. If you're not ready now, then that's okay. But it's also the other kind of the flip side of that coin is you can't then turn up the whole household and go, well, it has to be this way or no other way. It's like, let us catch up. Please let us catch up. We need to catch up. We need to get dads on the same page. We need to get men on the same page.
Whoa. So the message that's coming out there is just be it. Just focus on yourself, on your own way of parenting, on the truth that you know around how you want to raise your kids. Don't continue to look across the fence at what that other person is doing and it's not right. Like, just come back and refocus, recenter. I like that. That takes a lot of pressure off, because we know we can't control anyone else as much as we try and as much as we would love to. I love that story about bringing all the health and wellness in and like trying to, bring everyone, your whole family into that. I totally get that. Where can people find out more about you? Because like, we're going to have more conversations. I know that already, but where is the best place for people to either find out and follow you, learn more, reach out to you? Can they reach out to you? Like, give us all of that.
Good question, Steph. I'm about to disappear for 3 months, so I'm about to go into hibernation. So I will be available throughout hibernation, but I'm doing a challenge. It's a self-development challenge called the Hibernation Challenge. I'll be deep into that for 3 months, but still will be contactable through Instagram, through chat. So I am at a dad lifting dads on Instagram. That's really the only place I want to kind of put any energy towards. I've put a lot of things on hiatus for the last year because I've been wanting to be very present with things going on in my family. But I'm always open to conversation. I'm always open to chatting, to seeing if I can kind of help solve a roadblock or just for you to vent. I've had plenty of people just jump in my inbox and vent and kind of share what's on their heart. which is humbling. It's extremely humbling to get messages from people that I've never met before that said, I come across this and it made me feel this. This is my story. And they've kind of poured message after message to things I can only imagine that they wouldn't even share with their family. So it's humbling to hear those kind of things. But yeah, like I'm, to be honest, I don't know where the next 3 months is going to lead me. And I'm getting a pull, as much as I love this stuff, Steph, and I'd love to keep sharing my voice on podcasts and things like that. The pull towards kind of working with people in a one-on-one forum or anything like that. I'd love to just, it's kind of selfish to say, but I want to talk about it a lot more and keep advocating for it a lot more. But yeah, the actual one-on-one work is this. I need to just keep sharing my voice. So yeah, jump in and talk to me through a DM. I'd very much love that. But yeah, it's a stoic kind of belief. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. Flip that, or I'll kind of change that a little bit. Waste no more time arguing what a good parent should be and be one. So that's kind of like what we need to do, kind of, because that, like I said it at the start, and I kind of like really went there a few minutes ago around it. But like our kids need it. Our kids need us to really not work it all out, but work out a bit of it, so we can kind of at least let the kids be kids, and then us parents can kind of hopefully grow up as parents that don't have to, do this, and maybe we'll, together break some stuff generationally, and we move towards the new generation, Steph.
One word, and that's wow. I'm not going to add any more, except just to say a massive thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Okay, if I do say so, that was a pretty powerful conversation, part 1 and 2. And to be honest, I can't take any credit. I think I could have just sat back and listened to Dan talk. He is so open and so honest, and his sharing is so real and so raw. He doesn't hold back, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And I wish that men and women alike, all of us, just were able to have better, more deep conversations like that. I think it brings us all closer together and a lot more strong. And man, we have a lot of struggles in this thing called life, and parenting. So I'm really glad to be able to kind of give his voice a bit more of a lift up with however I can. I think it's really important. So I hope you guys got a lot out of that conversation. This last kind of like minute or two, I'm going to talk a bit about the hibernation challenge that he's running at the moment. So I want you to think of maybe your husband, maybe your partner, maybe your brother, maybe a friend who you just never know that when something drops in someone's lap, it could be a huge turning point for them, and it could make actually a big difference. You just never really know. So that's why I want to talk a bit about the hibernation challenge. You can go to hibernationchallenge.com. It's very simple. I'll put the info in the show notes, but let me tell you guys a little bit about it, because in case you've passed this episode on to someone, a man in your life who might be keen, then let me give you a couple of details. Okay, so it just started on the weekend. Dan said, please do share about it, because people are still able to join. If you're a dad or not, if you're a man, if you would like to take this self-development 12-week challenge this winter, they call it obviously the hibernation for a reason. There's a lot of, a sense of purging some of the habits that are not serving you. So things like social media scrolling, alcohol, smoking, junk food, sugar, gambling, dating apps, a whole lot more. And also there's a lot of support as a group in terms of developing and finding out who you really are through journaling, reflection, affirmation, intention. There's a lot of skill mastery, reading podcast requirements and things like that, daily movement goals. So it's a whole really dig deep and find out who you are, who you're meant to be, and let's start kind of afresh. So I love the sound of it. There's a brilliant community of brothers in there who have weekly meetings and support one another. So there's lots going on in the Hibernation Challenge. Please check out hibernationchallenge.com or share that. And as I said, it just started on the weekend. There's still time to join, and you never know who might really need to hear this. So go check it out. And thank you guys again for listening, and I'll see you next week for the next episode.
I'll start doing it. I'll start modeling the behaviors. I'll start, talking to the kids about X, Y, and Z and sharing X, Y, and Z and let them feel X, Y, and Z. And when my husband, pushes up against it, I'll show him emotional intelligence and I'll be understanding. I'll be compassionate. I'll be patient, because that's the thing. Like, by then going to your husband and attacking your husband, you've lost your emotional intelligence.